Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to this week's video. In this week's video, what we're going to have a look at is doing like a sprint system. As you can see here, we've got a sprint, and you can see here on the back of my character, we've got sort of like a stamina bar, and that's regenerating. And then when we sprint, obviously that reduces. So it's like a sprint and sort of regeneration system. So that's mainly the focus, not necessarily the sprint itself, but the deduction of stamina and then the regeneration of that. And then as an added benefit or bonus at the end, as you can see here, I've actually got the stamina bar sort of floating on the back of my character like a little backpack type thing. And then this is actually a material which updates a value. That's actually diegetic design. That's not going to be the focus of the video, but I am going to cover it very briefly at the end, and there'll be a link down in the description to the person's video that I watched to do it. That's underscore, a very good YouTuber for Unreal, definitely worth checking it out. But that being said, let's get this sprint system and stamina system sorted, and then you can have a look at the sort of material diegetic design at the end. So that being said, let's get into it. Okay, just before we proceed as well, I just want to say I apologise for not posting a video last week or in the last couple of days as planned. My computer is on its last legs. Mainly the hard drive. The hard drive is completely maxed out, and I think it's in bad health. I've managed to get the computer to work for this video, so if there's anything glitchy or unexpected, I do apologise in advance. But if not, then I guess that was unnecessary, but just a bit of a disclaimer and an apology. So, right, what I've done is I've created a brand new project just so then I can start afresh along with you. And we're going to open up the third-person character blueprint, and let's make the sprint system to start with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of make it basic, and I'm going to keep building it and building it and building it until we get a fully fleshed out sprint system which takes into consideration if your character's moving before you reduce stamina and all that sort of stuff. So let's get into it. First things first, you're going to want to pick sort of a key to press for your sprint. So I typically always pick left shift because it's quite a natural button, and I think it's also quite a common button in most games. So when pressed, we're going to want to set the run speed or walk speed of the character to be increased. So let's do that. So for us to do that, we need to tap into the character movement component, and I seem to have minimized that. So there you go, over in the details panel. So character movement is selected on the details panel. If we scroll down to about here, we can see we've got max walk speed. By default, that's 600. So what we want to do is we want to adjust that when we press shift. So let's drag our character movement component onto the blueprint, and let's pull off that, and let's find set max walk speed. Set max walk speed, there we go. And then when we press the button, we want to set the max walk speed to maybe 1200. Let's double it, and let's select this node, Control W, and duplicate it. And when we release, we want to set it back to 600. So straight off the bat, you've got a sprint. Very, very, very basic. Not much to it. I can see that my computer is struggling even to compile and play. So this video may not be great. I do apologise for this. Yeah, we're struggling here. So if this is visible, watchable, when we hold shift, we're going to sprint. You can see that we now speed up, and then when we let go, it now reduces back to walk. Sprint, walk, sprint, walk, sprint. So that's a bit more obvious there when we're near something. So yeah, so that's a sprint. That's as basic as it gets, really. So what we want to do now is we want to start to incorporate some sort of stamina. So when we sprint, we're going to start deducting stamina, and if we run out of stamina, we don't want to sprint anymore, and then we want it to regenerate. So first things first, we're probably going to want to make a variable called stamina, and it defaults to a bool, so we'll just click that little pill shape and change it to an integer. I'm going to go for, and I'm going to compile. And with stamina selected, we want to set that to, I don't know, something like 100. I think 100's probably a good number. And I'm just going to drag it out here and get it so it's available. So let's just move these apart because these are two different things. For as long as the shift is pressed, we want to continue deducting stamina until we've run out, or until we've released the key, and then stop. So for us to do that, I'm actually going to separate these nodes. I'm actually going to separate these as well, and then we need to figure out a way of deducting the stamina. So because we're going to do it over time, we probably need to use something like a timer. So a timer by event is usually the one I go to, and when we press it, we're going to start the timer. Oh, okay. We're going to start the timer, and the timer's going to loop. And let's say for every 0.1 of a second, looping with no delay. For every 0.1 of a second, I want to deduct, let's say, a point of stamina. 1 point of stamina. So I'd probably get my stamina, and then I'd minus 1 from it, and then I'm probably going to be setting stamina. So this timer is going to tick a by, and every time it ticks, it's going to fire this event. So we need to drag off this event and do a custom event. And we're going to say this is reduce stamina. So what we've got now is we've got stamina being reduced by 1 point every time we run. And we're going to be sprinting. Now, when we're not, we're going to want to do the same thing, but in reverse. We're going to want to add. So now what we can do is drag off here and set timer by event. I'm struggling to type because I've put the mic in front of my keyboard. And then for this event, this custom event, we're going to be Regen Stamina. And we're pretty much going to want to get stamina. We're going to want to add. And then we're going to want to set stamina. And obviously we're going to have the walk speed set like that. Okay, so there's one thing that I've missed out here is these timers are going to be triggered by this press, but we're never telling it to stop. We're never saying, right, stop reducing stamina because we're no longer sprinting and we're regenning. So to be able to control this timer, we want to drop off this return value and promote it to a variable. And essentially what we're doing here is we're setting the timer in this variable, and then we can tap into this variable and say, right, because this is the timer, timer stop. And we can put that anywhere. So make sure we give it a good name. So we're going to call this one red stamina timer. Like reduce stamina timer. And we're going to need to do the same for the regen. So promote to variable and regen stamina. And why didn't that type in? Regen stamina. What's that saying? Regen stamina. Name is already. Oh, is it because? Okay, timer. It's probably because this custom event's already got that name, which is weird. I thought different types could share the same name, but clearly I'm wrong. Okay, so we're going to plug that in. So now we've got this timer being set. So we kind of have like a handle on it. So what we're going to say is, when we press to sprint, I'd say one of the first things we want to do is make sure, if we were previously regenerating, we want this to cancel. So regen, drag that out, and we're going to do what's called clear and invalidate. Clear and invalidate is basically stop and reset. But yeah, pressed clear and invalidate the regen timer, and then start to sprint. So for me, that makes sense. Get the regen timer and cancel it before we start sprinting. And then vice versa. On the reduce stamina timer, we're going to want to clear and invalidate that. Because we don't want to be reducing at the same time we're regenerating. Okay. Ooh. So, stamina's at 100. That's going to be reducing by 1. And then it's going to regenerate by 1. Now, this timer I've not actually set the time. We definitely want it to loop. But the regeneration, I actually want the regeneration to be slower than how quickly it reduces. Because I want the stamina to reduce quite quickly because we're sprinting. It's quite an exhaustive thing. But I want our stamina to regenerate a bit slower. Just so I feel like that's a bit. I think that's more common in games. Like your stamina doesn't instantly regenerate, or it's not. You can sprint for a lot less than it regenerates, type thing. So I'm actually just going to double the time to 0.2. So it's only subtle, but it'll be enough. It'll be noticeable. Okay, good time to autosave. Good stuff. And then at some point we need to check, really. We need to check, have we run out of energy or stamina? Have we run out of stamina? So round about here, we are taking our stamina, we're deducting 1 from it. So I think here's probably a good place to check if we are less than or equal to 0. So stamina's, let's say, 3. We take 1 off it, it's 2. Is that less than or equal to 0? Nope. We do this again, we're now 0. Are we less than or equal to 0? Yes. Right. Well, if that's the case, and it is true, if that's true, then we want to stop this timer and we want to set our speed back to 600. So we're going to get that red timer again. Get the red timer. I'm actually going to rename that to sort of like sprint timer, something like that. I feel like that is a bit better to understand straight off the bat. And we're going to clear and invalidate that. So if it's true that we have stamina less than or equal to 0, clear and invalidate the timer, and then do this again. So we've copied that, and we're just setting our walk speed back to 600. So once we've run out of stamina, set our speed back and stop the stamina from being deducted. Okay, and let's say our stamina. Actually, you know what? I set stamina to 100. We're going to be able to run forever with that. So let's set it to 50. Let's set it to 50. And when we're adding to it, every time we add to it, let's check to see if it's greater than or equal to 50. So if that happens to be greater than or equal to 50, we should stop regenerating stamina. because otherwise we're going to get an unlimited amount of stamina. So if we're greater than or equal to 50, we should get the regen timer, and we should clear and invalidate it. It's true, but we don't need to adjust any speed here because it's not really going to affect the speed. Okay, so what I'm going to do here. Now this is going to be messy, and please don't keep this in your game, but I'm going to get a tick. And I'm just going to tick what the stamina is. Print string, actually that's not going to work. So event, print string, this is going to be awful. I mean, I've already done it now, but yeah, it's terrible. So if we press compile and we press play, we're going to be spammed with 50, and then when we sprint, we can see that that's going down, and then when that gets to 0, hopefully, our character is now slowing down. I'm going to let go of shift, and you can see that that is now regenerating. If I then hold shift again, we can see that that is being reduced, and then if I just tap shift every so often, you can see that I'm just using that little bit that it's regenerated. So that's fine. Now, let me just show you something. So obviously we've not really put any sort of system in here. If I just stand still and press shift, it thinks we're sprinting, and you can see that my sprint's going down. But we shouldn't be. We really shouldn't. So this system's going to need we're going to need a way of checking if we are moving. So I've just moved that up there to give us a bit more space. Let me move these as well. So we need to see if we can. We need to see if sprint should be activated. You know, like, can we sprint? Now, we need to check that all the time, and putting stuff on tick is not very efficient because the tick happens, you know, seconds and seconds and milliseconds apart, and doing checks all the time on a tick is not sort of good. Now, one neat little trick is the movement input kind of already fires all the time. If I was to print string here, which by the way I use print string for any kind of like debugging or, you know, just finding out what stuff does. So I just chucked a print string on here, and it says hello. If I hit compile and play, now I am not touching any key on the keyboard, and you can see that hello is firing pretty much at the same speed as a tick, because there's a 50, a hello, a 50, a hello, and it's just constant. Now, that's without me pressing any button on the keyboard. So, because this is already happening, what I might do is I might chuck in a cheeky check to see if I'm actually moving. So, what we can do is we can get the player's velocity. So here we go, under transformation, we've got get velocity. And we can say if this value is, I'm going to say not equal to 0. So what I'm saying there is, if you move at all, your velocity is going to be at least in one of these directions. So for you to have a velocity, you have to have moved in a direction. So these values are not going to be 0. If it isn't 0 is true. Oh, branch. If it's not, if it's true. So let's plug that in. If that happens to be true, I'm going to say I am sprinting, or I have the ability to sprint. So like, can we sprint? So let's set up a new variable, can sprint. I'm going to change that to a boolean, and I'm going to set it, and I'm going to copy that I'm going to duplicate it, sorry, and because I'm going to need to set it twice. So if it's not 0, then I'm going to say I have the ability to sprint. If it's false, I don't. Now, to prevent this from sort of messing up the movement that it was doing before, you need to make sure you plug both of these into that. So now this movement input should not be affected in any way whatsoever. So you can see my movement is working as normal as it was before. But now we're doing this can we sprint check. So what we can do now is with our left shift, we can put in our can we sprint branch. So if we can sprint is true, start doing this. Do I need to do a can sprint on the release? I don't think so, actually. So if we can sprint, start sprinting. If we can't, don't do anything. So let's check now. I'm stood still, I press shift, nothing happens. But if I start to run and I press shift, it works absolutely fine. Now, obviously, there's going to be another issue here, actually. That if I press sprint, I'm going to wait till that gets to 50. Okay, it's not getting to 50. If I press and hold sprint and then run, you see that it doesn't do anything. Now, the reason is because, let's close this down. I have pressed shift, so I've got to here. This has said false, end of execution. Like, after here, done. This is just a single instance. This isn't going to be like, can I sprint, 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 can I sprint? I'd have to press the key multiple times to do a check. So if I press shift and then move, this is always going to be false. If I move and then press shift, this is going to work. So we also need to do like another... we need to activate it from a different place in a sense. And obviously because... Where are we? Because we're already checking if we can sprint here, maybe we should then activate the sprint from here too. So one way we could do this, if we disconnect the left shift and let's create another variable. Saying, I'm just going to put sprint question mark, and I'm gonna set that, and I'm going to duplicate it again. I'm going to set 1 to sprint and 1 not to sprint. That's going to be pressed. That's not going to be pressed. So this is just a little. When I press left shift, we can sprint. Yes. When I release it, can we sprint? No. What we can do is we can say get the sprint branch. If we can sprint, start sprinting. If we can't, don't sprint. Or stop sprinting, should I say. So where this branch started our sprint for us, we need to make a custom event so we can trigger it. A custom event called start sprinting. Let's put that in line like that. Start sprinting. And then again on the stop sprinting, do another custom event. Stop sprinting. And put them like that. So if we can sprint, sorry, and then we are asking to sprint, let's start sprinting, and if the opposite is true, we'll stop sprinting. So let's go back down to our movement input. We'll say, right, if we've asked to sprint, the can sprint check is already done up above for us, so we don't need to worry about that. So the true would be to start sprinting, and then the not true would be to stop sprinting. There we go. So now in theory, if I stand still and press shift, okay, it looks like I've got a bug there because I'm tapping shift and it's allowing me to regen by 1. Okay, I'll fix that in a minute. Let's just try again and we'll sprint. Okay, let's find out what's gone wrong. So what's happening is because every tick, in a sense, this is constantly repeating and repeating and repeating. This timer's being told to start over and over and over again, but it doesn't actually start because before it's done this 0.1 second sort of time, it's been told to start again. So it's actually resetting. So what we actually need to do is we need to just do this stuff once. So when I ask you to sprint, start the sprint timer once and then wait for me to tell you to reset. And the reset is actually going to be triggered from our release of the key. So we could put that like that, and I'll tell you what, we'll move that a bit closer. And we're probably going to want to do the same thing here. Yeah, let's do the same thing here. So let's do once, and we'll reset that when we press the button. I think that is the cause. So let's just compile and play. If I now sprint, yes, so there we go. So the timer was just being overloaded with data. So now when I'm running around, that's fine, and I release, and that's going to count back up. Now, just out of curiosity, I'm going to see what this counts back up until, because I think there's a slight number problem here. So that's 49. Run, and that goes only to 1, doesn't it? Actually. Okay, so we're stuck between 1 and 49. To me, it's not that much of an issue, but okay. So I know what we need to do. I know what was causing that issue there. So essentially, what I've done is I've got the stamina going into the check to see if we're at 50 or greater. That's all fine. I've kept also the reduced stamina split as well. That's fine. But what we actually need to do, the reason that it's doing that is we're not actually checking before we start the timer to see if we even need to start the timer. So because we're not sprinting, or because we're telling it that we can't sprint, we're essentially stop sprinting repeatedly. So what we can do is just make a bit of space, and we should just check our stamina level before we even start this. So get stamina, and we'll say if it's greater than or equal to 50, and then grab a branch. So if stamina is greater than or equal to 50 is true, we don't want to do anything, but if it's false, we want to start regeneration. So I can drop that down just a little bit, and I'm going to make this a bit of space here, I guess. So this is getting a little bit cramped now. I'm just going to pull this down, and I'm just going to make a bit more space. See if I can get all this in here nice. Okay, so now if we compile and play, let's check. So we're stuck at 50 at the moment. We will run, and we'll run all the way down to 0. And then if we let go, this should regenerate all the way back to 50 and not 51. So there we go, 50. And if I tap the left shift, this is no longer just adding random numbers. So that's that fine. So let's just have a quick run through. So we can stand still, hold shift, nothing happens. We can let go, nothing happens. We can hold shift and run, and we are sprinting, and our sprint timer is reducing. I can let go, and we stop sprinting. That's very good. I'm just tapping and tapping and tapping. Very good. I was seeing if I could yeah, okay, there we go, look at that. I think what we've done here we need to do here. So before I do ones for the actual sprint itself, I think we should just do a check on the stamina. Again, get stamina, and we'll do if it is less than or equal to 0. If stamina is less than or equal to 0 is true, don't do anything. But if that's false, we can start reducing stamina. So now let's get back down to 0. And I'm going to spam that shift key again. And we can see that now that is not going back into them negatives. And it's regenerating. Okay, so during the editing, I actually realised how long this video was getting. So I've decided to cut it here. This is going to be the end of this video. However, just to sort of finish this video off, I am going to release the rest of it on Wednesday. I've got some new parts coming for my computer tomorrow. On Monday, I'll get them fitted. It's a new hard drive, essentially. Once I've got that migrated over, I should be fully functional again. So this video is going to be cut short. The rest of it will come out Wednesday. I hope what I've covered in this video was helpful. It got a little bit longer because I was concerned about my hard drive. I had a doubt in my mind that I wouldn't actually get a video to you again this week. But luckily I've managed to record something. So, you know, there was a bit of doubt in my mind throughout the entire video. Anyway, we are dwelling on things. Thank you for watching. Keep posted, or subscribe so then you don't miss it on Wednesday, the remainder of the video. And yeah, thank you. If it was helpful, give me a like, comment down below if there was something missing, or if there's something you want me to just add on to Wednesdays, because I probably will realistically record that Monday night or Tuesday. So if there's something you want me to add, get your comments in quick. If it fits the video, I'll do it. If it doesn't, then I might just make a different video for that. Other than that, come and join me on Discord. I've not been that active because my computer's been a bit down, but send your messages and I'll reply. And I'll see you on Wednesday, I guess. Cheers, guys.